Well, good afternoon, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office. It is Sunday afternoon. It's now the ninth day of November 2025, and this is a briefing for you on Sunday afternoon because now we're starting to get a little bit more clarity as to what's likely going to happen this week. And so you can use this as an opportunity to plan your week in terms of the rain and snow that we are expecting later on this week. As you may have remembered on Friday when I did the last briefing, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of run-to-run differences with the GFS as well as the Euro. But now the models are starting to come closer together in terms of what looks like a more reasonable solution in terms of what we can expect with rain and snow. So perhaps you can use this to plan your week ahead. First, I want to start with this. This is the way it looks outside the window from the home weather office. I'm recording this at like 1:45 in the afternoon, so relatively low sun angle. But I also wanted to point out the fact that we do have these contrails out there. I know some of you blow up when you see these things, calling chemtrails the spring, etc. No, those are contrails. Why do we have contrails today? Well, there's more moisture in the atmosphere up there around 20,000 feet or so, 30,000 feet and higher. Because, well, let's look at the satellite. You'll see here on the satellite, we have moisture coming up from the south. The main storm track is out here. You can see the clouds going from south to north. And then you see these high, thin clouds going by, and that means that there's moisture up there. So when the planes go by and they leave their moisture behind, well, it condenses, and that's why we get contrails. But otherwise, what I want to point out here is this line of cloud cover. We're on the warm side. Man, nice warm day today, warm yesterday for this time of year. Behind it, there is cold air. So this is a boundary. Eventually, this boundary is going to sink to the south and bring us some rain. Now, I have seen some people talk about this upcoming rain later on this week as being an atmospheric river. Well, I just don't see it that way. Instead, what we have going on here is this line of moisture. That's what I just showed you. And it eventually sags to the south across the area during the day on, well, let's call it Thursday for right now. I'll go into the timing more. But, if you're going to call this an atmospheric river, everything is an atmospheric river. And I'm just going to call this a cold front. A cold front is going to bring some rain and snow. Nothing more than that. There will be times later on this season that I will call things atmospheric rivers. And to me, those are things that are more prolonged events. The rain that kind of comes in waves over the course of like 3 days or so. And then we get exceptional rain. But to me, this is just a cold front. If you talk to the folks at Scripps that do a lot of the AR research, yeah, they'll say this is some sort of an AR. But to me, this is just a cold front. So let's not get too caught up with all this AR stuff. All right, let's take a look at the 500 millibar chart, and here's the big ridge we have, and then here's where that line of moisture is currently. And over the next day or so, that kind of goes by to the north. We still have the ridging. So outdoor plans on Monday, Tuesday, and even into Wednesday will be okay. Now, Wednesday, we may get rain by Wednesday night, and in some areas on the coast, and again, I'll show you that in a minute, Wednesday afternoon we'll start to see the rain. But for most, the rain will hold off until the overnight hours of Wednesday and into Thursday. But this looks like a quick hitter. It comes in, it goes out, it brings us some rain, it brings us some snow, and then we clear out. A little bit of ridge behind it, and then there's another one that may come our way Sunday night or early Monday, but it depends on where this low goes. And if there's forecast uncertainty at this point, it's that. But if you go back a couple of frames, you might remember that last week we were talking about getting perhaps something else in here for next weekend. But instead, this is next weekend. Ridging takes place. Yeah, we're in between systems. There's the system that we are going to have, and then the next one that may drop down the coast. But in between, you get ridging, which means that if you have outdoor plans for next weekend, right now, that looks okay. So let's get to more of the details here with the GFS. And we'll just zip through the next couple of days. This is Tuesday. Going to get into Wednesday. This is Wednesday at 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. rather. So here's where the rain is. Cold air behind it, as indicated by the 540 thickness line. See how the thickness lines go from red to blue, indicating the colder air behind it. So while we are likely going to be hearing that the rain is going to start on Wednesday, I don't want you to get too caught up in that, because right now the timing looks as though it'll be after dark that the rain gets into areas, well, like the Sierra, the West Slope. So if you have outdoor plans Wednesday, if you work outdoors, I think Wednesday is still going to be a day you can get things done. Thursday, well, let's get into that. Look, as the colder air comes in, you get some snow here. This is the overnight hours, and now we're up to 4 a.m. We're getting snow in the Sierra. So first thing in the morning, we could have snow on Interstate 80 and Highway 50. Yep. Chain controls. But look at that. This is at 7 o'clock in the morning. The rain is ending, still snowing in the Sierra, but our best rain will likely happen before the sun comes up on Thursday. This is likely showing us scattered showers. Keep in mind that the GFS doesn't have great resolution, but what it does show you generally is that what would be happening here is that the west slope would be soupy. We'd see snow maybe down to about 5,000 feet, and we would see some nice snow in the Sierra continue throughout the day. But for the valley, I think most of the rain will be done as we head into the day on Thursday. Now on Friday, there may be a passing shower on Friday, but Friday generally looks dry. This is the weekend. And then here's the chance of the next one coming in Monday. But again, it's going to depend on the path of that low. So let me back up here to Thursday. Let's go to as this goes by. I'll go right to here. So how much rain are we talking about? Nah, not a ton. For the valley, 1/2 inch of rain. That seems reasonable. On the west slope, 1.5 inches, maybe 2. Yeah, that seems kind of reasonable from a relatively quick moving cold front that will go through. And again, most of that rain should happen, if the timing holds true, that the rain will be mostly done before the sun comes up on Thursday. But on the west slope, places like Grass Valley, Nevada City, and Auburn, and Placerville, and Sonora, and Twain Harte, you're going to be seeing, kind of a soupy day on Thursday. And what about snow? This is where we may do pretty well here. And this is, again, a difference from what we had been seeing. Let me back up and you'll be able to see how that snow accumulates. So we'll go when the snow just starts. 1 a.m., 4 a.m. This is 7 a.m. At 7 a.m., well, this might be a little bit rambunctious, showing 15, 16 inches of snow, but it should snow pretty good. Looks like the orographics are going to hold up pretty well, and but obviously enough that we will have chain controls, and that's just at 7 o'clock in the morning. With snow continuing throughout the day, we could see maybe upwards of 2 feet at elevations above 6,500 feet. So this could be the first really good snow on 80 and 50 and 88, and that might be the biggest story with this passing system on Thursday, I should say on Wednesday night and into the day on Thursday. So that's the way the GFS shows this. Let me back this up, and let's just see how the Euro is coming into agreement. So we'll switch over to the European model, and it should be pretty close to this as well. Here's Wednesday. This is Wednesday afternoon. This is Wednesday at 4 p.m., showing the rain off the coast, agreeing for the most part that the rain would come in much later, so leaving Wednesday dry until we get into the nighttime hours. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. Yep, the timing looks very, very similar to the GFS. Same thing with the cold air coming in behind it. That'll help to drop the snow levels. But same sort of story. This is the middle part of the day. The valley is dry, kind of soupy on the west slope. Still getting some snow in the Sierra, maybe some instability showers, and then everything dries out. And in terms of total rain, very similar. About 1/2 inch of rain for the valley and 1 inch to 1.5 inches in the foothills. And then for the Sierra, let's see what this is talking about in terms of snow. A little bit less. This is showing totals more like 1 a foot to a foot and a half until you get down into the real high country of, let's say, the high country of Yosemite, where you could see more than 2 feet. So the Euro shows a little bit less snow than the GFS, but in terms of timing and intensity of the rain, it certainly looks like it's these models are in really good agreement. Half an inch here, and then the GFS, same thing. About a half an inch in the valley, more on the east side of the valley, less in places like Solano County and Contra Costa counties. And then, like I said, next weekend right now still looks like it's going to work out pretty nicely. So that should give you the overview of what we are seeing this week. Is it going to rain? Yes. Is it going to snow? Yes. And like I said, I think snow may be the biggest impact from this, because we'll see chain controls up before the sun comes up on Thursday. But if you need to travel through the Sierra, you have all day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. All of those days will be clear in the Sierra. Friday, there may be snow showers, but in terms of impact for travel, Thursday's your day. And I would consider all day that could have chain controls. They may get lifted sometime in the evening or whatever. Who knows? But Thursday is your day that will be impacted for travel. Doesn't mean the road's going to be closed. You just have to have chain controls, four-wheel drive. You all know the story. And then by the time you get to the weekend, the roads will be fine once again. So that should give you the overview of what to expect this week. And like I said, I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon, so enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I'm sure that many of you also have Monday off and maybe Tuesday off as well for Veterans Day. And I hope you observe it accordingly. And in the meantime, I'll give you another update first thing tomorrow morning. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll talk with you later.